Well, hey, North Park Community Church, Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we will be looking at 2nd John as we get back into our series called Love Letters, Letters of Love from the Aged Apostle John. We wrapped up 1st John before Holy Week, and then we had a couple messages looking at Palm Sunday, Triumphal Entry into Jerusalem, Good Friday, and then Resurrection Sunday. And so with resurrection zeal coursing through us after last Sunday, we come to 2nd John. Now, let me just say, the resurrection is just the greatest message to preach. And I love preaching the resurrection. 2nd John, on the other hand, is oftentimes a neglected little letter in the New Testament. Shortest New Testament letter. I'll go ahead and write that down for you. In Greek wording, it is the shortest New Testament letter. Okay, and it's how shall I say it? It's, in one sense, it seems to be a summary of a lot of the things we talked about in 1 John in more detail, and then just a brief little warning to this little local church, and that's about it. And I tell you what, I'm working hard on this one to figure out how it preaches. It's the Word of God. It's good. It stands as is, but the resurrection, I tell you what, that one is that one preaches real easy, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm just gonna have to work a little bit harder. And let me just say, that says a little bit more about me as the preacher than it does about 2nd John as the Word of God. That's a humble confession there. Okay, let's dive on in and let's see what we got going on here in the letter of 2nd John. Okay, here we go. The elder. Now, this could mean a couple different things. Is this the aged saint, or is this designation of church office, the office of elder? That is the question. Really doesn't make a significant amount of difference to our passage and the interpretation of our passage. Either one works, and likely it's both. We know that the author is the Apostle John, and apostle would be a higher, I would say, a higher ranking office than that of elder, and so we'll just put that in right here. So maybe it is the office. Maybe he's just saying the older one to those whom he often refers to as his spiritual children. Obviously, because it does not say John's name, there's of course going to be speculation about if this is actually the Apostle John or not. I would say as soon as we get into verses 3, 4, and 5, and 6, you're going to say, that's 100% the same guy that wrote 1 John. And as we saw in 1 John, there's so many parallels to Gospel of John. It's without question, in my humble opinion, without question, it's all the same author, and we have great reason to have confidence that this is the Apostle John. But that debate is out there because it always is, because people need things to write their new dissertations over and stuff like that. So they got to grapple about something, I guess. Now, here's another tricky element right here. The elect lady and her children. what what does what does this mean? Is It's going to be another area for guys with a lot of letters after their names to write a bunch of papers over. Now this one is a little bit more significant to the text. So rather than squabbling over whether elder is a designation of office or just meaning the older one, this one does have a little bit more implication here. So in the Greek, what we have is eklete kuria. Oh, sorry, mixing up. Kuria. There we go. That's Greek. That's eklete kuria, right there, which means elect lady. If you're familiar at all with some Greek vocab, you might remember that kurios equals Lord, and so, but I've made this comment before. Actually, during Palm Sunday's message, I made this comment about when they're getting the colt, when the disciples are sent ahead to get the colt and bring him back, and someone asks you, what are you doing? They're to say, the Lord has need of this. It's the Greek kurios, and it's a way of saying, the master or sir, or it's a respectful title, and this is the feminine version of that. So it would be something like lady or madam or something like that. So because of that, now the question that comes about is, the question is this an actual lady or a personification of a local church? That's the question. Or both. Let me go ahead and put that in there as well. Goodness, where do we go in kind of teasing this out a little bit? The elect lady, to take that as just a literal woman, that would be very much a reasonable surface level literal interpretation, and so it's not easily discarded. And so to take this as a personification of a local church, we need to have grammatical rationale within the context of this entire book to make that case. And now I think we do have that. Many commentators are in agreement. Many are not. It's not everybody, but many notable commentators, Danny Akin, John Stott, John Cruz, some notable, Colin Cruz, some notable commentators will interpret this as a reference to a local church that may be the home of a wealthy woman, meet in the home of a wealthy woman. The church is often personified in feminine terms as the bride of Jesus. And again, one of the other indicators that this is not written to a lady in particular, but to the whole church, is that there's a reference here to her children, and in the context of the rest of the letter, and the warning that's there, it would be. It's very reasonable to interpret this as being written to a collection of believers. And so if the children are the collection of believers, then we would say that this is this is certainly a letter designated to a church that may meet in the home of a particular lady who's wealthy and has a lot of space, but it maybe not. Moral of the story is this, and this does have ramifications for something later on in this text. I would suggest written to a local church, not a woman and her how should maybe put literal kids. Okay. Oops. Okay, so we'll see if we get some justification for this later on as we move forward. Okay, now this is what John says to them. I love in the truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth that abides in us and will be with us forever. So let's just highlight know the truth, abiding. There's some 1 John repeated favorite vocab and phraseology there. He goes on to say, grace and mercy and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father, Son, in truth and love. That's more Johannine language there, and vocab and form. This right here is a common greeting in letters of the day, but obviously this is within Christianity. Okay. Now it goes on to say, I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we are commanded by the Father. Now I ask you, dear lady, not as though I were writing to you a new commandment. Okay, that's 1 John all over the place. But the one we had from the beginning, that we love one another, and this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you heard it from the beginning. So, point is that, this is filled with, we could call it, summary statements from 1 John. 1 John's message. What he treats in fuller length in 1 John, here we get a summary version of it. Again, as we read this, familial language is something very near and dear to John, and so as he writes 1 John, certainly written to a local body, or it was written to a couple of these local bodies, and the letter was intended to be circulated around to them. Here he's given summary of a lot of that message, and he says, I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we were commanded by the Father. And so, yeah, let me go ahead and move forward here a little bit. For many deceivers have gone out into the world. Just a little note here, gone out into the world. This is actually very similar phrasing to Jesus's sending his disciples into the world in John 17. So just an interesting note there. So we've got these deceivers here. This is going to be, again, more First John. He treats these and he calls them Antichrist right here, which is this term is exclusive to John. He's the only New Testament writer to use this term of Antichrist. Paul will talk about the man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians. So the Antichrist seems to be referred to elsewhere. Jesus will talk about deceivers who will come into the world after him and false Christ, but this particular word, Greek word, is exclusive to John. Now, those who do not confess, what's the false teaching that they bring? They do not confess the coming of Jesus in the flesh. So this is maybe just like the infancy form of what will come to more formally be known as Gnostic, and it's Neoplatonism, which is a degradation of the physical and an elevation of the spiritual. The spiritual is good. The matter, that which is physical, is bad and evil. And so God could not really become fully human. Jesus is maybe was just an appearance that took the appearance of humanity, but was not actually human. And so this would be a heresy called, this particular form, Docetism. So the person who denies the full humanity of Jesus, along with his full deity, but the deity wasn't being denied. It was the humanity of Jesus that was being denied. That is a deceiver and someone who is anti-Christ, against Christ, opposed to Christ, because it's denial of the one true Christ as revealed to the apostles and recorded in the scriptures. And so they're out there, he says. And so because of that, watch yourselves. Watch yourselves. This is a repeated command all over. Watch yourselves so that you do not lose what you have worked for, but may win a full reward. So the question here is this a reference to salvation, or heavenly rewards? That's the question that's out there. Now, I would suggest that what could be lost would be the assurance of salvation, most certainly, and the potential of proving therein also the potential of coming to find that you actually never had salvation in the first place. So as you watch yourself, you can prove that the full reward will be yours, which is the eternal glory, and may potentially include heavenly rewards as well. We'll have to tease that out more in the sermon, I think. Everyone who goes on ahead, everyone who runs ahead of Christ, runs and does not abide in the teaching of Christ, does not have God. Whoever abides in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. So what we got going on here is does not have God. Whoever abides in the teaching has the Father and the Son. This, again, more just very clear John language. If anyone, here we go. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him. This is kind of the crux point here of instruction for John. Do not receive him into your house or have any greeting with him. Otherwise, you're taking part in his wicked works. And so, here we go. This is where how we interpret this up here, whether it's talking to a lady, her literal biological children in her home, or whether this is a reference to the church. Because here it's going to say, can I be hospitable at all to a false teacher? Or is this about who comes into the assembly of the church? Okay, so kind of getting into the kind of the nuts and bolts of it is, just to think of the implication, can I welcome a Jehovah's Witness into my home for tea to teach him, to teach the Jehovah's Witness to teach him the truth, or can I not let him into my house? And then the other option would be, do we support false missionaries, so to speak, false teachers, as the church? Those are kind of the implications. So that really gets into the crux of it, and I would suggest that this is more a reference to what the assembly of believers endorses or allows into its midst, thus giving a symbol of approval and endorsement. I think that's what this is after, but I'll grapple with it a little bit more to maybe come to just a little bit more surety on that. And then he just wraps up here with, again, just a very common way of concluding just a New Testament letter. Just got much to write to you. I'd rather not use paper and ink. I'd just rather see it. I don't want to give you the phone call. Text message isn't going to work. So I would just love to be with you, see you, hug you, see you face to face, that our joy may be complete. The children of your elect sister greet you. This right here, to stay consistent with John's metaphor toward the church, this is likely another church, maybe even that which is from 3 John. So there it is. There's 2 John, just with a quick flyover. It's got a lot to it. It really does. and it really does have a lot of relevance for us today. We are not beyond these same things, and this warning is just as relevant for us today as it was for these early believers. So may the Lord prepare our hearts and our minds to receive this message, to be encouraged in the truth, to be obedient in the faith out of love for Christ and love for neighbor. And so there it is. I love you, church, and I'll see you Sunday.